Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Epictetus spoke these words, not as a poet but as a warrior of the mind. And yet, centuries later, most men and women still live like prisoners chained to things they cannot command. Look at your life for just a moment. You rage at traffic as though your fury can move the cars. You panic when someone rejects you, as if their approval was a crown you cannot live without. You grind your teeth at failure, believing that sheer force can bend the world into submission. But the truth is harsher. The enemy is not the chaos outside. The enemy is your obsession with control. That enemy has already infiltrated your throne room. Think of a general standing on a battlefield. He believes he commands every soldier, every outcome, every turn of the fight. He raises his hand as though destiny itself will obey. But real war does not bend to fantasy. Terrain, weather, hunger, morale, and the enemy's willpower, all of it collides against his orders. History is littered with commanders who thought they could bend reality with arrogance. Napoleon marched into Russia, certain of swift conquest. He believed his will was iron enough to dictate the snow, the hunger, and the endless expanse of land. But the Russian winter and the patient retreat of his enemy crushed his army without mercy. That is the illusion of the general, the belief that your commands alone shape the world, and you repeat the same delusion every time you think you can force life to obey. Now look at the modern battlefield. You wake up and your phone already floods you with demands. Emails, messages, obligations, all screaming for your attention. You try to control it all, to answer faster, to fight harder. But instead of winning, you exhaust yourself in a war of resistance. You try to push against every problem, every delay, every human flaw. And what does this resistance bring? Friction, burnout, a life where every day feels like marching through mud with a sword too heavy to lift. The harder you force, the more powerless you become. Life was never designed to be strangled into submission. It flows like a river, and a man who tries to hold a river in his fists ends up with nothing but mud and exhaustion. So, we must name the enemy clearly. It is not life. Life is not your foe. The seasons, the storms, the defeats, they are neutral forces. They have no hatred toward you. The true adversary is the delusion that you can bend everything into obedience. That delusion is the tyrant whispering in your ear, promising power while secretly draining your strength. It is the shadow that makes you believe that one more push, one more hour, one more demand will make everything align perfectly, but perfection never comes, only collapse. Here is the command: stop waging war against the river. Recognize the illusion of the general. Release the trap of resistance. Strike down the false king of control that sits in your mind. True power is not found in forcing outcomes. It is found in mastering your response, your focus, your throne. The one who conquers himself flows with life, and in that flow, he becomes unstoppable. Repeat this. I do not force. I align. I flow. I will conquer. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Machiavelli understood that the true throne is not a chair of gold, but the mind that governs itself. And yet most people live as if their crown rests in the hands of others. One insult, one rejection, one failure, and their throne crumbles into dust. They are rulers who surrender the palace of their mind to invading armies without even realizing it. If you are to master yourself, the throne must be fortified. You must decide who enters your kingdom and who is denied. Picture your mind as a fortress city. At its gates, emotions line up like petitioners seeking entry. Anger bangs on the door, demanding immediate passage. Fear lurks outside, whispering threats of what might come. Desire, with its smooth tongue, promises pleasure if only you let it inside. A weak ruler opens the gates to all of them, and soon the palace is overrun. Order is lost. The throne becomes a seat of chaos, but a wise king chooses carefully. He does not let every emotion storm into the hall. He questions each one, examines its loyalty, and admits only those that serve the stability of his realm. This is the first command: guard your gates. The mind is your kingdom. If you allow every storm to enter, your throne will never stand. But what happens when you fail to guard it? You become the puppet king. Think of leaders in history who bowed not to reason, but to the mob. Rome itself fell because emperors surrendered to the frenzy of the crowd, trading strategy for cheap approval. A puppet king wears a crown, but the strings of others jerk his head and guide his hand. In the modern world, this fate is no different. You rise in the morning and immediately bow before the court of public opinion. A stranger's comment on your post poisons your mood. A glance of disapproval at work shatters your confidence. The news flashes of disaster, and suddenly your entire outlook bends to fear. You may sit on your throne, but invisible puppeteers pull at your strings. Every person who can hijack your peace becomes your master, and the tragedy is this: you handed them the strings yourself. To be sovereign, you must cut the cords. Detachment is not coldness. It is command. It is the ability to hear applause or insults, fortune or ruin, and remain unmoved at the core. A king who clings to the cheers of the crowd will die when they turn to jeers. A ruler who feeds off constant victories will collapse at the first defeat. Detachment is armor. Without it, you will forever be ruled instead of ruling. And yet, there is one more crown higher than all. What I call the crown of silence. Imagine a ruler sitting in the great hall. The torches flicker, storms rage outside, enemies scheme beyond the walls. His court looks to him, trembling for direction. He does not panic. He does not rage. He sits in silence. He breathes. He sees. And in that silence, he is untouchable. This is not the silence of weakness, but of command. A lion does not roar at every noise in the jungle. A hawk does not flap at every gust of wind. Silence is strength because it is proof of control. When you can sit still on your throne and let storms pass without moving, you have reached true sovereignty. So understand this. Mastery begins not when life bends to your will, but when your mind bends to no one's will but your own. Guard the gates of your inner kingdom. Cut the strings of the puppet king. Place upon your head the crown of silence. This is how the throne is secured. This is how the ruler within you rises. Repeat these words: my mind is my throne. I rule it. I guard it. I am unshaken. It is not the well-fed long day, but the well-begun morning that brings victory. Machiavelli understood that wars are often decided before swords even clash, and so too is your life decided in the opening minutes of your day. Morning is not a casual routine. It is the battlefield where your will either takes command or surrenders before the fight even begins. The way you rise, the choices you make at dawn, they decide whether you are a ruler of the day or a prisoner of it. Every general knows that the first moves of a campaign set the tone for all that follows. At dawn, armies march, positions are taken, and strategies unfold. In history, battles like Gettysburg or Hastings were determined by the first choices of leaders who either seized momentum or lost it forever. Your morning is no different. The moment your eyes open, the enemy begins testing your defenses. Do you rise with purpose, or do you let weakness dictate your actions? Hitting the snooze button is not harmless. It is a retreat, a signal that comfort has already conquered you. If the first arrow fired is one of laziness, the rest of the day will echo with retreat. But when you claim your dawn with decisive action, When you stand and move before hesitation grows roots, you plant your flag firmly in the soil of victory. That is the power of dawn decisions. But beware the ambush of noise. Unlike the warriors of old, your battlefield is not filled with clashing steel. It is filled with glowing screens. The phone by your bed is a Trojan horse, carrying chaos straight into your throne room. One notification, one email, one headline, and your mind is already captured before you've even drawn your sword. You think you're simply checking for a moment, but in that moment, the enemy seizes your attention, and with it your control. Consider how quickly your peace collapses when you scroll the endless feed of complaints, disasters, and demands. You go from ruler to servant in seconds, chained to the rhythm of everyone else's battles. If you cannot defend the first hour of your day, you will not command the rest of it. The morning is a fortress wall. If breached, the city falls. Guard it like a king guards his gates. Yet, the highest form of mastery in the morning is not brute force, it is alignment. Imagine a warrior who ignores the terrain, who marches straight into swamps and storms because he insists the world bend to his will. He tires, he stumbles, and he dies. The wise strategist studies the land, flows with it, and uses it to his advantage. Your life is no different when you rise, fighting against the natural rhythm of your body, when you force yourself to stumble through mornings cluttered with resistance. You waste energy on battles that cannot be won. But when you align with rhythm, when you embrace stillness before chaos, when you breathe before you charge, you begin the day as water flowing downhill. Instead of clashing with life, you ride its current. This is the first victory, and it is not small. It sets the tone for every decision, every word, every encounter that follows. Understand this. The morning is not just another part of the day. It is the battlefield where the war of self-mastery begins. If you fail here, you will fight uphill for the rest of the day. But if you win, if you seize the dawn, if you repel the ambush of noise and align yourself with the current of life, you walk into every hour already crowned with victory. Repeat this. I seize the dawn. I guard the gates. I won the day. Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. Machiavelli knew that survival was not about endless motion, but the ability to wait, to adapt, to strike only when the moment was ripe. Stillness is not weakness. It is a sharpened weapon. It is the pause before the arrow is released, the silence before the battlefield erupts. You must learn to wield stillness as your blade, because without it, chaos blinds you and you will swing wildly into your own destruction. Consider the samurai. Before combat, they did not rush. They practiced stillness, meditation, and breath. They knew that a frantic warrior dies quickly, but a calm one sees openings invisible to others. The art of the Japanese swordsman was not in constant motion, but in readiness, in the ability to wait without fear. A still mind meant sharper instinct, and sharper instinct meant survival. This is why generals, hunters, and assassins throughout history placed silence before action. A predator does not roar before the kill. It waits, hidden, motionless, until the strike is inevitable. Stillness was their weapon, and it must become yours. Now compare this to your own life. You wake and immediately drown in noise, notifications, music, endless chatter, the constant hum of a world addicted to distraction. Modern life has trained you to fear silence. You reach for your phone in the elevator. You fill every moment with sound. You cannot bear to sit alone with your thoughts. But in that endless noise, you lose vision. You cannot see the battlefield clearly. A distracted mind fights ghosts instead of real enemies. This is how people waste years blinded by constant distraction, reacting to every buzz and headline, never once sitting still long enough to see the truth of their own situation. Understand this: the one who cannot be still can never master himself. He is a slave chained to every passing noise. Now imagine water, still and unbroken. It reflects the world perfectly. You can see the sky, the trees, even your own face without distortion. But disturb it with frantic motion and the reflection shatters. Life is the same. When your mind is restless, you cannot see reality as it is. You see only fragments, distortions, fears and desires twisting the truth. Stillness is not inactivity, it is clarity. It is the strategy of the river. A river flows not by force, but by following its path, wearing down stone with quiet persistence. The still water knows when to mirror and when to move. When your mind achieves this stillness, decisions become precise, timing becomes natural, and actions become unstoppable. The stakes are clear. Without stillness, you will fight blind, distracted, and exhausted. You will lose battles before they begin. But with stillness, you see clearly, strike precisely, and move in harmony with the current of life. You transform every situation into opportunity. Remember this command: cultivate silence, guard your attention, reflect reality as it is. For stillness is not surrender, it is the ultimate weapon. Repeat this: I wait, I see, I will strike. It is not by abundance of forces but by their proper employment that victories are won. Machiavelli's lesson is brutal and clear. Excess weakens, focus strengthens. In war, the general who tries to fight on all fronts loses on everyone. In life, the man who clutters his time with endless commitments, distractions and noise condemns himself to defeat. If you want flow, if you want mastery, then you must become ruthless in elimination. You must kill what is unnecessary so that what is vital can live. History proves this truth. Alexander the Great did not conquer by dragging luxuries across the desert. He burned wagons of supplies to force his men to move lighter, faster, sharper. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon not with an entire empire's baggage, but with a single decisive legion. Even Hannibal, facing the power of Rome, cut through the Alps by abandoning what could not survive the climb. Great leaders knew this. Excess is dead weight, and dead weight kills momentum. You think carrying more gives you strength, but it is what slows you down, what buries you in the snow of your own indecision. The lesson is simple: focus is freedom, and elimination is power. Now step into the modern battlefield. It is not the Alps or the desert that crushes you. It is your phone, your feeds, your false obligations. Endless scrolling is the siege weapon that hammers at your walls. Every click, every swipe is an arrow piercing your attention, leaving you bleeding in silence. You tell yourself it is harmless, but hours vanish, strength drains, and clarity dissolves. Modern life has given you infinite fronts to fight on: messages, alerts, obligations, distractions, and like a foolish general, you stretch yourself across all of them until nothing remains. That is why you feel exhausted before the day even begins. You are fighting wars that do not matter, bleeding out in battles that bring you no victory. This is where the sword of clarity must be drawn. Imagine holding a blade forged for one purpose: to cut. With it, you sever the false from the true, the urgent from the meaningless, the vital from the noise. The act is ruthless, but it is necessary. Without cutting, the river of your life clogs with debris. With every strike of elimination, the current clears, the water flows faster, and your direction becomes unstoppable. This is not fantasy, it is strategy. Just as a commander removes weak battalions from the field to concentrate strength at the decisive point, you must remove weak commitments to concentrate your will where it matters most. The stakes are life and death for your destiny. If you cling to excess, you will crawl, overburdened, and collapse under weight that was never yours to carry. But if you eliminate, if you cut without hesitation, you rise lighter, sharper, unstoppable. Flow cannot exist in chains, and you forge those chains yourself when you refuse to let go. So wield the sword, burn the wagons, abandon what does not serve the throne. Be ruthless, because hesitation is weakness, and weakness has no place in the kingdom you are building. Repeat this: I cut what is useless, I keep what is vital, I flow without chains. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Machiavelli revealed the ancient law of power: appearances are weapons sharper than swords. A ruler may tremble inside, but if his face remains calm, his enemies hesitate, his allies rally, and his people obey. This is the mask of command, the armor that hides fear, amplifies authority, and turns chaos into order. Without it, storms will strip you bare. With it, you stand untouchable. Look at history. Julius Caesar, betrayed by senators and facing assassination plots, still carried himself with the posture of a man destined to rule Rome. His calm unnerved enemies who expected panic. Abraham Lincoln, during America's Civil War, bore the weight of a fractured nation. Letters reveal his private despair, but in public he wore composure like a crown, speaking with steady conviction that steadied millions. Winston Churchill, under the shadow of Nazi bombs raining on London, lit cigars and spoke with fiery calm, declaring that Britain would never surrender. These leaders knew that command is not simply strategy. It is theater. In crisis, they wore masks that gave strength to the weak and direction to the lost. That mask became a weapon greater than any army. Now look at today's world. Offices are not battlefields of blood, but of perception. A manager who panics spreads panic like fire through dry grass. A leader who looks overwhelmed signals defeat before a single decision is made. But the one who wears the mask of composure, the steady tone, the unshaken posture, the eyes that show no fear, becomes a center of gravity. Colleagues gather around that strength. Teams follow it, even investors trust it. In modern command, the mask is not deceit, it is discipline. It is the choice to protect your people from your own chaos. It is the art of concealing storms behind a clear horizon. If you fail here, you give away power before the battle even starts. And beyond history and offices lies the larger stage of life. Understand this. Existence itself is theater. Every day you play roles at work, with friends, in love, even with strangers. Each role demands a mask. If you wear the mask of weakness, people will cast you as a pawn. If you wear the mask of strength, they will treat you like a king. The mask does not lie. It directs the script. Actors know this. A costume changes the story. A face changes the scene. So too in life, your mask shapes the narrative. Others believe. The man who controls his mask controls his destiny. Do not mistake this for falsehood. The mask of command is not about faking what you are not. It is about amplifying what you must become. It is about placing the crown on your head before others dare to. It is about standing tall while the earth shakes beneath you. You may feel storms raging inside, but if your face is calm, you buy yourself time, you steady your troops, you intimidate your foes, and sometimes that mask becomes the reality. By wearing strength long enough, you grow into it. The cost of failing to wear this mask is heavy. You will spread weakness, lose loyalty, and invite predators. but the reward of discipline is absolute. Authority, trust, and flow, even when the world burns. So command yourself, do not let fear leak through your face. Do not let panic escape your voice. Hold the mask as your weapon, for it is not deception, it is strategy. Repeat this. I wear the mask. I command the storm. I am unshaken. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Machiavelli knew that hesitation and weakness are cancers to power. But there is an enemy more dangerous than rivals, more destructive than external forces. It is the enemy within. If you are to rule yourself, you must become your own assassin. You must stalk the shadows of your own mind. Identify illusions and cut them down before they destroy you. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, gave the command plainly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. This is the battlefield. Yet most people ignore it. They spend their days trying to control the uncontrollable weather, markets, the opinions of others, while their inner world lies undefended. They cling to outcomes as if grasping them tighter will prevent them from slipping away. But this is an illusion. Life cannot be forced into obedience, and the more you try, the more it resists. Like a general who lashes his troops until they mutiny, you become the tyrant of your own mind. The inner assassin must strike here, killing the illusion that control exists anywhere except within yourself. Look at modern life and you will see self-sabotage everywhere. A man desperate to keep a relationship alive clings so tightly that he suffocates it. A worker who fears losing his job overworks himself into burnout, making the very failure he dreaded inevitable. A creator obsessed with perfection polishes endlessly, never releasing, killing the very art he wanted to share. Forcing outcomes destroys them. This is not a weakness of effort, it is blindness of strategy. The assassin within you must step forward and slit the throat of this tendency. It is precise, it is merciless, and it is necessary. Now imagine this assassin, cloaked in silence, blade drawn, moving through the corridors of your mind. He does not waste time with noise or rage. He is patient. He watches for the illusions hiding in the dark corners, fear disguised as caution, attachment disguised as loyalty, control disguised as discipline. And when he finds them, he does not argue with them. He does not negotiate with them. He eliminates them. Swift, clean, final. The assassin does not fight enemies outside. His only mission is to cut down the false kings that try to rule your mind. You need this inner figure, because weakness will not leave on its own. Illusion will not surrender. They must be hunted, cornered, executed. If you hesitate, they grow stronger. If you excuse them, they multiply. But if you summon the assassin, if you allow him to strike within you, you become lighter, sharper, freer. You stop wasting energy on battles that cannot be won, and focus only on the one throne that matters, your mind. The cost of ignoring this assassin is heavy. You will waste years fighting shadows, bleeding out in battles you never needed to fight. But the reward of wielding him is immense. Clarity, power, and the ability to move with life instead of against it. The assassin is not your enemy, he is your ally, the silent blade that cuts illusions so the true ruler in you can rise. Repeat this. I kill illusion, I end my weakness, I rule within. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, because fortune is a woman, and to be mastered she must be bold. Machiavelli warned that timidity feeds defeat. Yet the truth runs deeper. Every day, you are feeding something inside you. The question is not whether you feed it, but which wolf receives your hand. The Cherokee told the story of two wolves locked in eternal battle within every man. One is fear, anger, greed, and weakness. The other is courage, faith, compassion, and strength. A child asked his grandfather, "Which wolf wins?" The old man answered, "The one you feed." This tale is not a myth. It is strategy. Your choices, your focus, your inner dialogue are meals you serve. Feed fear, and it grows into a beast that devours your throne. Feed courage, and it becomes the warhound that guards your empire. No general, no ruler, no predator is neutral in this war. Every thought is an arrow launched, every action a ration of food tossed to one wolf or the other. Now look at the modern battlefield. Anxiety is everywhere. The world trains you to feed the wolf of fear. You scroll through endless disasters, compare yourself to carefully curated illusions, and consume a diet of noise that keeps your spirit starving. Every notification whispers that you are not enough, that you are late, that you are weak. And each time you react, each time you surrender to panic, you give the wolf of fear another feast. That wolf becomes fat and strong, prowling through your mind, dictating your choices, enslaving your actions. This is why so many people, despite talent and opportunity, collapse before life's challenges. They feed the wrong wolf until it becomes their master. But there is another path. Imagine within you a wolf that embodies flow, calm, precise, present. This wolf does not waste energy snapping at shadows. It does not panic at storms or claw at walls that cannot be moved. King conserves strength, moving with the current, striking only when the time is perfect. This is the wolf of surrender, not surrender in weakness, but in wisdom. When you starve the wolf of resistance, when you refuse to keep feeding fear with your energy, the wolf of flow grows stronger. It sharpens your instincts, steadies your breath, and gives you the ability to ride chaos like a general rides his warhorse. The stakes could not be higher. Feed fear, and you become prey. Your life ruled by hesitation, distraction, and constant defeat. Feed flow, and you become a predator, lean, sharp, untouchable, gliding through storms with power that others cannot comprehend. So ask yourself, which wolf eats tonight? Which one will you hand the scraps of your attention, your focus, your energy? The answer will decide your destiny. Repeat this. I starve fear. I feed the flow. I rise with the stronger wolf. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Machiavelli's warning is not just about politics. It is about life itself. Existence is a chessboard, vast and complex, where every move you make echoes forward into victories or defeats you cannot yet see. The impatient player forces moves and blunders. The disciplined strategist waits, watches, and lets inevitability unfold. If you treat life like checkers, fast, reckless, simple, you will be destroyed. But if you treat it like chess, deliberate, patient, ruthless, you will rule. Look at history. Napoleon stormed into Russia with the arrogance of a player who thought sheer aggression guaranteed checkmate. He advanced too quickly, certain the empire would fall with one decisive strike. But General Kutuzov understood the deeper game. He retreated, scorched the land, and let the winter and hunger play his pieces for him. Napoleon's army, too stretched and too impatient, collapsed not from defeat in battle, but from the weight of their own overextension. The board had been set, and impatience played directly into the enemy's hands. This is the law. Forcing the game before it is ready is the fastest path to ruin. Now, see how the same law governs modern life. Companies grow drunk on short-term victories, expanding recklessly, grabbing territory, flooding markets, believing the momentum will never break. But like a chess player who pushes pawns too far, they expose themselves. Borders become fragile, resources thin. Enemies exploit the gaps. Think of the businesses that rose like fire and vanished like ash, because they mistook speed for power. Contrast them with the giants who played the long game, waiting, building, sacrificing quick wins to establish inevitable dominance. In business, as in war, the patient player survives while the reckless burns out. You too must decide. Will you play life as a sprinter lunging for easy pieces, or as a strategist who builds inevitability one precise move at a time? But here lies the deeper truth. Your greatest opponent is invisible. Life itself sits across from you at the board. It is both an ally and an adversary. Push too hard, and life resists, breaking your position. Flow with it, and doors open where once there were walls. The trap is believing you can dictate every piece, every move, every outcome. That is arrogance, and arrogance is punished. The wise player does not fight the board. He studies it, aligns with it, uses its structure to bend the game in his favor. The board is not your enemy, but if you ignore it, it will crush you all the same. So understand this. Life is not conquered by rushing pawns into traps or by lunging blindly for the king. Life is conquered by patience, by precision, by the courage to hold back when every impulse screams to strike. The game rewards discipline, not desperation. Do not force. Do not overreach. Build position. Create inevitability. Let the opponent collapse under the weight of your strategy. Repeat this. I wait. I plan. I checkmate. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Machiavelli understood that strength is not granted by crowns or victories, but by the discipline that shapes them. And here lies a paradox most never grasp. Surrender is not weakness. True surrender, chosen, disciplined, deliberate, is the highest form of strength. It is the iron will concealed beneath silence, and the weapon that makes this possible is ritual. Look to the Stoics. Epictetus, once a slave, taught that a man is free only when he surrenders his need to control the uncontrollable. He began each day with reflection, reminding himself of what was within his power and what was not. Seneca, surrounded by wealth yet hunted by politics, practiced a ritual of poverty, eating simple meals and wearing rough clothes so that fortune could never enslave him. These daily practices were not weakness. They were armor. By surrendering their grip on outcomes, they anchored themselves in what no one could steal, their own mind. That is iron discipline. That is ritual forging flow. Modern champions, too, understand this law. Athletes at the highest level do not walk into competition blind. They train relentlessly, sculpting their bodies, sharpening their techniques, drilling until instinct takes over. But when the whistle blows, when the game begins, they let go. They trust the ritual. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Serena Williams, they all relied on their rituals so deeply that the moment of performance became effortless. They prepared with iron will and then surrendered to flow. The champion's paradox is this. The harder you prepare, the easier it becomes to release control. Without ritual, nerves consume you. With ritual, your will is tempered like steel and surrender becomes power. Now imagine yourself as a blacksmith standing over a forge. Each day, the fire is lit. You place your mind like raw iron into the flames. With repetition, you hammer, fold, and temper it. These are your rituals. Morning stillness, deliberate reflection, disciplined practice. Over time, the weak metal of distraction and fear is burned away. What remains is an iron will. Not brittle from rigidity, but flexible, resilient, unbreakable. And when life demands action, you no longer fight desperately to control outcomes. You trust your forged discipline, and you flow like a weapon, guided by destiny itself. The cost of ignoring ritual is slavery to chaos. Without anchors, you drift, tossed by storms, reacting instead of ruling. But the reward of iron will rituals is immense. You become unshaken, even as the world spins. You act with precision, while others scramble in confusion. So surrender, but only after you have prepared. Let go, but only after you have forged yourself in the fire of ritual. That is not a weakness. That is mastery. Repeat this. I prepare with iron. I surrender with strength. I flow unbreakable. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Machiavelli understood that true command begins not with armies, but with yourself. And the highest command you can reach is this: becoming untouchable. Not because life stops striking you, but because no strike can pierce your throne. You no longer cling. You no longer force. You flow, and in flowing, you become a fortress that no enemy can breach. History has shown us prisoners of circumstance who proved this law. In the Nazi camps of World War II, many men broke under horror because they clung to control they did not have. Yet, Viktor Frankl, stripped of everything, found freedom in the one thing the guards could never touch: his mind. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, he wrote, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Those who surrendered the illusion of control endured, while those who fought to cling collapsed. This is the paradox. Acceptance is not weakness. It is power. It is the strength to outlast storms that would crush others. Now turn your gaze to the modern battlefield. Social pressure, insults, humiliation, these are the new arrows hurled at your throne. Online, in offices, even among friends, people seek to provoke, to test, to drag you down, and yet their weapons only wound if you resist. The moment you rage back at an insult, you give away your crown. The moment you panic at chaos, you become its servant. But when you refuse to react, when you let the sting pass through you without leaving a mark, you become untouchable. Imagine someone throwing stones into a river. The water does not protest. It simply flows around the stone, carrying on, unstoppable. That is composure. That is sovereignty. And this leads to the image of the river warrior. He does not fight every obstacle head-on, wasting energy in resistance. He flows like water around stone, bending without breaking, adapting without losing direction. Rivers carve valleys, wear down mountains, and shape the earth, not by force, but by persistence. The warrior who learns to flow becomes inevitable. He is not hardened like brittle glass, shattering under pressure. He is fluid, unstoppable, untouchable. The cost of failing here is slavery. If every word, every storm, every inconvenience has the power to move you, you will never rule your throne. You will be tossed about like a pawn in someone else's game. But the reward of mastery is unshakable power. You walk through chaos with calm. You sit on your throne while others rage. You become the man who cannot be touched, the warrior who cannot be broken. Understand this: to be untouchable is not to avoid the storm, but to be the storm, moving, unyielding, inevitable. Repeat this: I do not resist, I do not break, I flow, and I endure. Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to control the other half. Machiavelli's words strike at the very heart of mastery. Half of life will never bend to you, no matter how fierce your will. The river will rise, storms will break, enemies will scheme, but the other half, that is yours to command. And it is here at this final stage that all the lessons converge. You no longer live as a man thrashing against the current, desperate to force outcomes. You rise as the warrior king, not one who seeks to dam the river, but one who sails it, directing its power instead of resisting it. This is the final form. This is the master of flow. History gives us images of the warrior sage, leaders who did not fight life, but aligned with it. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire under constant siege, did not waste himself raging at fate. He adapted, reminding himself that the obstacle was the way, that nature itself was his ally, not his foe. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, taught that the greatest generals win not by brute force, but by aligning with timing, terrain, and momentum. Even Genghis Khan, feared predator of the steppe, conquered by flowing around obstacles, retreating when necessary, striking when the moment was inevitable. They understood that to force is to fail, to flow is to win. This is not passive. This is the ultimate strategy, where patience and adaptability forge inevitability. And in the modern age, you see the same law at work. Athletes speak of the zone, artists speak of inspiration, innovators speak of breakthroughs that seem to come not from grinding force, but from surrendering into focus. Michael Jordan at his peak described the game slowing down for him, every movement effortless, as if he were not fighting basketball but dancing with it. Musicians lose themselves in the current of sound, painting genius into silence without forcing a note. Entrepreneurs who thrive are not the ones who grab wildly at every opportunity, but the ones who sense the current of culture and position themselves where the wave will inevitably break. Flow is not magic, it is mastery. It is the fruit of preparation, ritual, detachment, stillness, and patience, all converging into a state where action feels inevitable, as if the world itself is playing in your favor. And now comes your transformation. Picture it. You stand as the warrior king on the throne of your mind. Around you storms rise, enemies whisper, chaos churns. Once you would have tried to strangle it all into submission, thrashing in futility. But now you are different. You have learned the illusion of the general, the necessity of guarding your throne, the power of stillness, the cut of ruthless elimination, the mask of command, the assassin within, the wolf of flow, the patience of chess, the iron will of ritual. All of these weapons have been forged together into something greater. You are no longer the frantic soldier fighting on too many fronts. You are the strategist, the captain of the river, the predator who waits and strikes when the moment is unavoidable. You do not resist life. You ride it. You do not force. You flow. And this is not a weakness. This is not surrender in the way the weak imagine. This is sovereignty, for the man who flows becomes inevitable. He does not shatter against storms because storms cannot grasp him. He does not lose power to insults, chaos, or resistance because he has nothing to defend. He moves like water, surrounds like fire, waits like the hawk, and rules like the king. Others tire themselves out trying to fight life. You conserve, you glide, you endure. You arrive at the throne not battered and broken, but calm, composed, untouchable. This is the cost and the reward. If you remain as you were, forcing, clinging, overreaching, you will waste your life in a war you cannot win. You will break your own army, starve your own kingdom, and die with nothing but exhaustion as your crown. But if you claim this final form, if you master flow, you become something rare, a man who cannot be stopped, because he no longer fights against inevitability. He has become inevitability itself. So take this throne now. Claim it with the calm of a sage and the focus of a predator. Flow is the weapon that no force can counter, the throne that no enemy can shake, the final form of the true ruler of self. Repeat this: I do not force, I flow, I am inevitable. Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack. Then they attack others, and at last they seek to rule everything. Machiavelli captured the truth of human hunger for power, but what he left unspoken is the rarest form of rule. The man who no longer forces, no longer clings, no longer exhausts himself in futile wars against the river of life. The final throne belongs to the one who aligns with the current, who flows with inevitability, who conquers not by crushing, but by enduring, by shaping, by outlasting. That is your calling now. Take the mantra into your soul. I do not force. I align. I flow. I will conquer. Say it not as words, but as command. Each time you surrender control of what you cannot command, you sharpen your throne. Each time you let go of panic, of noise, of the desperate urge to bend life with your fists, you rise higher. Think of the small moments, when traffic stalls, when people disappoint, when fate shifts without warning. These are not accidents. These are your training grounds. Each surrender is not weakness. It is a soldier's drill, a blacksmith's strike, forging your sovereignty in the fires of the everyday. Understand the legacy of those who lived this way. Marcus Aurelius, ruling the world's greatest empire, did not waste his days screaming at storms or fortune. He surrendered what was beyond him and focused on what no one could touch. His reason, his will, his virtue. That is why his words still rule long after his empire has turned to dust. The untouchable do not leave behind piles of stress or broken crowns. They leave behind empires of influence, ideas and examples. They live lighter, die freer, and are remembered longer. That is the reward for becoming untouchable. This is your call to arms. Stop forcing. Stop clinging. Sit upon your throne, not as a desperate tyrant, but as a calm king. Flow with life's rivers, align with its storms, conquer with inevitability, and let the world look upon you not as a man enslaved by noise, but as one who mastered himself and therefore mastered all. Repeat this until it is etched into your marrow. I do not force, I align. I flow, I will conquer.